Blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Friday, May 1st.
It's May Day.
May Day, 2026. Your readers today are
Don Williams
and JJ Patek. Some people know what May Day means. We'll start, as we always do, with the weather. Kind of an interesting day out there. Clouds and sun today. We've had both, with a passing shower, and chilly with a high of 50. Concerning what has been, I think 50 is pretty good. Mainly clear tonight. Protect vegetation from potential frost. A low of 35. Tomorrow is Saturday, a cold with a shower with a high of 47 and a low of 35. Sunday, we'll have breezy with some sun with a high of 50 and a low of 46. Monday, we'll have a shower in the afternoon with a high of 60 and a low of 53. And then Tuesday, we'll have a couple of showers with a high of 61 and a low of 45. Wednesday, a few afternoon showers and a high of 56 and a low of 47. And next Thursday, we will have cloudy with a bit of rain and a high of 50 and a low of 40. Yesterday's high was 49, the low was 38. The normal high is 62, the normal low is 42. The record high was 84 way back in 1899. The record low was 28 degrees back in 1978. Last year's high was 55, last year's low was 37. The national extremes, McAllen, Texas was 91 degrees. And the low was at Lake Yellowstone in Wyoming at 15 degrees. The Skywatch, the sun rose today at 6:10 a.m. Getting kind of hard to get used to that, but I think I can do it. Sun will set at 8:16 p.m. The moon rises at 8:44 p.m. and will set at 5:41 a.m. And weather trivia is back. And what is the solar summer in the northern hemisphere? And the answer is the quarter of a year with the most sunlight, which is early May through early August.
Well,
and my plants can't wait to get out on a porch to enjoy that.
Well, and your plants that are in the ground are going to do okay. We are now 4.5 inches above average precipitation year to date. Unlike last year, I've mentioned that a couple times now.
And my niece down in South Carolina is jealous because they're not getting any rain. They're on fire.
Oh, well. Turning to the front page, Patrick LeCamp, the News Enterprise editor, reports, as indigent defendants go, Quentin Yancey seems to have an enviable car collection, a Bentley, a Porsche, and 2 Fords. As for precious metals, he sold 8 gold bars to a pawn shop for $588,000 2 years ago, pocketing $278,000 after pawn fees. Late last year, he repaid a $200,000 loan to the same pawn shop as he tried to run his roofing business while under home incarceration at one of his 2 Sutton Park condominium units in Rochester, worth a combined $620,000. Given all that, how does Yancey qualify for a taxpayer-funded, court-appointed lawyer to represent him on his narcotics conspiracy charge? The defendant took out a mortgage and paid it back while under indictment, said U.S. Attorney Joshua Violante. Indigent defendants don't do that. In court Tuesday, Violante sought a hearing to call witnesses and cross-examine Yancey about his finances. The American taxpayer should not have to foot the bill for someone who can pay for his own counsel, Violante said. A judge in February 2025 appointed Attorney James Wolford to represent Yancey from the Criminal Justice Act, or CJA, panel of private attorneys who accept court-appointed cases and are compensated by the government to represent those who are financially unable to retain counsel. I've never had something like this before, said U.S. Magistrate Judge Michael J. Romer of Yancey's financial circumstances. The judge noted the law does not set an amount of assets held by a defendant that automatically triggers taxpayer-provided counsel. Romer declined to order a hearing, but he said he wants a new financial affidavit that's more complete and accurate. The judge gave Yancey's lawyer 30 days to file a new one. Romer, at the prosecutor's request, remanded Yancey to custody for violating the conditions of his release, including visiting a pawn shop and taking out a mortgage without informing the U.S. Probation Office. A federal grand jury returned an indictment last year charging Yancey, 38, of Rochester, with a narcotics conspiracy from 2018 through 2022 in the Rochester area, which carries a prison sentence of at least 10 years and up to life. Yancey is among some 24 defendants accused of conspiring with Joseph Zasso, who's awaiting sentencing to sell heroin and fentanyl in Jamestown, Olean, Buffalo, and Rochester. On March 12, 2025, shortly after his arrest, Yancey was released from custody through a $100,000 appearance bond and with strict conditions that included home confinement. In court Tuesday, Walford reminded the judge that his client's significant assets were identified and discussed at his arraignment. Yancey did not mislead or falsely undervalue his assets to the court, Walford said. Yancey completed his financial affidavit from memory with the aid of counsel while in custody, unable to review any records, Walford said. He was locked up, not back in his office where he could sort through records on his computer, Walford told the judge. His affidavit identified approximately $575,000 in assets, Walford said, who recalled in court Tuesday that he had doubts, too, about whether Yancey qualified for a court-appointed lawyer, but Yancey also had liabilities. Still, the government conflates gross business deposits with net personal resources, Walford said in a recent court filing. Deposits into a company account do not establish personal funds available to Yancey, the defense lawyer said. Yancey's Six Star Property Management, Inc. roofing business had substantial overhead expenses that needed to be deducted from gross receipts to determine how much actual cash was available to him, Walford said. My client's finances have gotten worse, not better, Walford told the judge Tuesday. Yancey tried running his roofing business while on home confinement, ultimately failed. The government would like to paint a picture that Six Star was a front for Yancey's alleged drug conspiracy-related activities for the mere fact that his business has collected cash payments, when nothing could be further from the truth, Walford said in a court filing. Instead, Six Star struggled to be successful. In a lapse of judgment, and desperate to keep Six Star afloat, he obtained a loan against his condominium to pay Six Star expenses, Walford said in his court filing. Yancey executed a mortgage on October 23rd with Ridge Coin and Jewelry Incorporated for a $200,000 business loan, using the condominium he pledged as security for his appearance bond as collateral. His company had monthly bills of over $25,000, Walford said. He used the $200,000 loan to pay his company's insurance and payroll and buy materials for roofing jobs in Buffalo and Batavia. His company took a $150,000 loss on a roof restoration job at the East Clinton Branch Library in Kaisertown. The work wasn't finished because his home confinement prevented him from going to the work site, but a partial payment allowed Yancey ultimately to pay off the $200,000 business loan, Walford said. His business has since ceased operations. Yancey took out the mortgage motivated by a legitimate business necessity, and he fully repaid it within 2 months, Walford said. Yancey's probation officer approved his December 22, 2025 visit with his attorney, but Yancey also traveled to Ridge Coin and Jewelry to pay back the loan after the attorney visit, which was not approved. As for the $620,000 condominium purchase, he could afford it because Six Star was doing well between 2021 and 23, according to Walford's filing. In 2024, however, the state suspended his workers' compensation insurance, so Yancey took out loans to pay the premiums in a desperate attempt to keep Six Star running, Walford said. When the state lifted the suspension, any profits were quickly used to pay off the debt. At the time of his arrest and arraignment, Six Star was losing money on a daily basis, Walford said. Yancey's financial affidavit included 3 properties valued at $450,000, $100,000, and $25,000, plus $5,000 in cash and liabilities of approximately $231,000, resulting in net worth of approximately $344,000. The affidavit stated Yancey was self-employed at Six Star with no monthly income. One of the Rochester properties is now in foreclosure. While Yancey's finances may be complicated, that doesn't explain why he neglected to mention assets on his financial affidavit, Violante said. Wolford's recent court filing acknowledged that Yancey owns 4 vehicles and a trailer. Yancey owns a 2008 blue Bentley for his personal use, a white 2009 Ford Ranger that was used by Six Star, a red 2010 Ford Taurus driven by his mother, and a gray 2015 Porsche used by his daughter, Wolford said. Straight up, the Porsche is not mentioned on Yancey's financial affidavit, Violante said. Defendant's financial affidavits are sealed from public view, as is Yancey's. His case is one of the few where details emerged in court filings and in open court. At arraignments, judges asked defendants nonspecific questions about their financial standing and if they signed the affidavits, but the judges rarely revealed details in court. 3 vehicles were listed on the affidavit, including a 2019 F-350 and a 2018 Mercedes. Yancey's Porsche appears to have had its title transferred about 3 weeks after his financial affidavit, according to a government filing. Federal agents investigated Yancey's finances, interviewing the pawn shop owner and condominium representatives who dealt with Yancey and also checking records at the Monroe County Clerk's office. It is clear during the investigation the defendant's financial maneuvering, including structuring transactions and writing money orders from himself to his company, are questionable, Violante said in a court filing. His financial affidavit in this course was at best incomplete and more likely than not misleading. Wow.
From an analysis from John T. Bennett, Trump keeps focus on own priorities as House GOP grinds. President Trump focused on other matters this week as House Republicans struggled to pass measures related to surveillance powers, agricultural policy, and immigration enforcement funding, with former officials saying the president's own priorities are likely to increasingly draw him away from the legislative grind. The chief executive was heavily focused on his White House ballroom project, King Charles III's state visit, and his conflict with Iran as Speaker Mike Johnson and other House leaders worked to secure votes to get the chamber moving again. Largely absent were the kind of social media posts and calls to Republican holdouts from the president and other legislative stalemates. Still, by leaving the arm twisting and negotiating to House GOP leaders, Trump showed his confidence in Speaker Mike Johnson, those sources said. In a more normal administration, a president would be much more deeply engaged on important intelligence reauthorization and the budget reconciliation moves of the Congress. Former Pennsylvania GOP Republican Representative Charlie Dent said in an interview on Thursday, but what is the biggest priority in this White House? Seems to be the ballroom. Look, the president has much more pressing business to handle. The ballroom can wait, Dent said. At this point, it's really an unhealthy obsession. Trump on Wednesday was so focused on his own priorities, which have caused some recent fissures among Republican lawmakers, that he admitted to reporters he was unaware of a major Supreme Court redistricting decision that had come earlier that day. Tell me, when did the ruling come out? The president asked a reporter in the Oval Office, flanked by the Artemis II mission astronauts and NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman. I've been with the astronauts and I've been with contractors because we're trying to get the ballroom built ahead of schedule. It's right on schedule. It's ahead of schedule right now. I want to keep it that way, Trump added. He then appeared to refer to a closed-door ceremony with the son of his White House counsel, and I was also with commissioning some people, but one of David Warrington's son, he's got this incredible son, so he was just sworn in. We had other things. Tell me what happened. Good grief. White House Republican leaders maneuvered to eventually pass a renewal of Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Acts for 3 years and approve a Senate-passed budget resolution that could clear a path for the party to fund immigration enforcement operations via a second budget reconciliation bill as well as a 5-year farm bill. But a White House official said the president was leaving it up to Johnson and his leadership team to secure the necessary votes. The official, granted anonymity to candidly describe Trump's role, on Tuesday said the vote wrangling was being driven by Speaker Mike Johnson and his team, adding, "Our staff is in touch and knows what's going on." But Johnson's team is working to resolve several things. The official on Wednesday night gave no indication it had changed as the chamber moved toward clearing both measures, with Johnson and other leaders huddling with members on and off the floor. Trump on Thursday morning participated in departure festivities for King Charles and Queen Camilla on the White House at the White House and fired off Truth Social posts on other topics. As our House was finally back in action late Wednesday night, Trump wrote an angry social media post about former FBI Director James Comey, who faces a new federal indictment over his own social media post showing seashells arranged to read 8647. Trump dubbed Comey a dirty cop and contended he knows full well the meaning of those numbers arranged that way. And on Thursday, as the Senate dealt with looming deadline on the Section 702 reauthorization, Trump posted instead about the Save America Act, which has stalled on the floor. Ivan Zapian, a former senior Democratic Senate aide, suggested Trump's decision to stay out of the House drama was something of a vote of confidence in Johnson and his leadership style. Not sure if it's luck, strategy, or brilliance, but everyone bets against the speaker at the edge, but he keeps on deciding where the edge is, Zapian said in an email. Dent said for Johnson, this week has so far at least been a big win because as a congressional leader, you don't want to have to rely on the president, regardless of the party, to have to step in and act as your whip. Meanwhile, Trump appeared to leave it to Senate Majority Leader John Thune of South Dakota and senior Justice Department officials to clear a path for his Federal Reserve Chair nominee, Kevin Warsh, in that chamber. The Justice Department late last week announced it would drop a Trump-desired probe into outgoing federal chair Jerome Powell over the president's suspicions of fishy dealings related to cost overruns of a central bank complex renovation. U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Jeanine Pirro, said the Fed's general inspector would investigate the matter, leading retiring GOP Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina to end his Warsh blockade. By leaving things to GOP leaders, G. William Hoagland, a former Senate aide to the then Republican Senate Majority Leader Bill Frist of Tennessee, said in an email, Trump acted in line with a message King Charles delivered in a speech to Congress on Tuesday. Hoagland called the British monarch's speech very good because it was important and ironic to discuss checks and balances. After all, that is what we fought the Revolutionary War over with King George III, and now his direct descendant was telling our president in Congress to respect checks and balances. Zapian advised against believing the attention-seeking president would not make House and Senate Republicans' moves all about himself. I'm guessing he comes in at the end and declares victory, he said. Then Hoagland noted the House and Senate will be pushing up against the Trump-set June 1st deadline to get a second budget reconciliation measure on his desk. That means there's still ample time on the reconciliation clock for Trump to re-engage with congressional Republicans. And when they get back, that's when the hard work really starts on reconciliation, Dent said. But as of late Thursday morning, Trump did not appear ready to engage. Instead, he appeared to step on his own America First messaging while bidding farewell to British royals. Great people, he told reporters. We need more people like this in our country. And you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. It's now 18 minutes past the hour, and let's move on to editorials. And advances are on the way. A sports-powered STEM boost is enlivening offerings from Buffalo Museum of Science. The project, Science Stadium, is created in partnership with the Buffalo Bills, the Buffalo Sabres, and the Buffalo Bandits. As reported by the News' Deidre Williams, the huge sports theme initiative uses the processes of science, technology, engineering, and math to connect science and sports through experiential and immersive exhibits. That's interesting. The STEM-focused project is about 50% complete and scheduled to be open to the public in July. Custom-built exhibits and Buffalo-specific elements will be incorporated into the project, ensuring that the site is truly Buffalo's science and sports exhibit, museum president and CEO Gary Siddall said. Viewer engagement at every level will ensure that fans will enjoy getting immersed in the world of science, technology, engineering, and math. Love of the game makes learning more exciting. That sounds good. Speaking of learning, the New York State Department of Labor Commissioner Roberta Reardon was impressed by the offerings of McKinley High School when she visited Tuesday. As reported by the News' Ben Sugimoto, Reardon received the grand tour and met some interesting creatures: a giant tortoise named Frank, a Burmese python named Steve, and some remarkably active koi fish in a pond. McKinley has the distinction of housing the state's second largest educational greenhouse. Reardon also explored the school's nearly completed modular cabin being constructed by building trades classes at McKinley from start to finish, including carpentry, electrical, plumbing, and general construction. Reardon's visit coincided with National Apprenticeship Week, during which she recognized the school as a distinguished pathway partner. And although there are many partnership programs in Western New York, 1,400 registered apprentices across 98 programs, most are related to manufacturing. Reardon highlighted that the State Department of Labor now takes a broader focus, such as special education teaching residencies and cybersecurity apprenticeships. As she mentioned, there's even a jewelry setting residency at Tiffany & Company and the opportunity to work with handmade Steinway pianos in Astoria. Students will benefit from these diverse skill sets when they enter a competitive labor market.
On East Side Care, a long-awaited comprehensive health care center is slated to open this summer on Buffalo's East Side. Its goal, as officials said, is to eradicate inequities in health care by meeting people where they are and treating chronic conditions. As reported by the News' Jonathan D. Epstein, the health care center will be operating at the intersection of Bailey and Kensington Avenues. Evergreen Health and its affiliate Community Access Services are constructing the 36,000 square foot facility at 3070 Bailey Avenue to bring medical and community services to an underserved neighborhood while addressing the shortage of doctors, dentists, pharmacies, and clinics in the area. The three-story building will feature primary and specialty care, pharmacy services, other supportive services, and care coordination. The $20 million project has taken more than 3 years. Groundbreaking was a year ago, and the price increased from its original $10 million to as a result of higher materials and labor costs and interest rates with other contributing factors. So it's doubled in price. The two nonprofits partnered with the Buffalo AKG Art Museum's Public Art Initiative for the building's mural, designed by local artist Bree Gilliam, a figurative painter from Buffalo who owns the Paintforia paint-throwing studio. The mural features a black woman and her daughter standing amid flowers as they gaze at the horizon. It could symbolize a better health care outlook for this underserved community. Hope that works.
Yeah. And from Clarence Page, what's really behind the indictment of Southern Poverty Law Center? Am I in the right place? Okay. When it comes to Justice Department
You have
Pardon me?
political cartoons?
Oh dear, you're right. I was wondering, am I in the right place? I'm not. We have political cartoons.
We do.
I apologize. I'm taking your spot. Well, Adam Ziglis puts out a real price today. And you got somebody standing with a Buffalo Sabres shirt and a cap in his arm with his arm crossed up, in his hand with his arm crossed up over his heart. And it says, "You know you're from Buffalo if you know every word to the national anthem of Canada." The reference to the other day when the mic kicked out and the Americans finished it.
Yep.
Just like we should.
Got every word.
Every word, right. And from Michael Ramirez, the Creators Syndicate, we have a cartoon of a large eagle with claws holding a spirit plane that looks like it's, prey. Pretty ugly looking. And the eagle's legs are labeled Government Bailout. And the title says, "The spirit is willing, but the economics are weak."
Well, there's not a lot of sentiment in Congress for the bailout of Spirit Airlines. We'll see what happens.
True, we'll see what happens. Okay, now you can read what you're supposed to read.
Turning to the big editorial today, Clarence Page says, when it comes to the Justice Department's stunning announcement of criminal charges against the Southern Poverty Law Center, as an old saying goes, where you stand depends on where you sit. If you sit with the broad section of Americans who revere the legacy of the civil rights movement and who look with distaste on the resurgence of white nationalism in American politics, it may come as no surprise that President Trump's DOJ is going after an organization with a long history of standing up to organized racism. If you sit with Trump's Justice Department, you may regard this latest example of prosecutorial lawfare as another opportunity to confuse the public while destroying an institution you regard as a political enemy. Most of us, me very much included, likely find the details of the indictment murky. Last week, the DOJ announced that a grand jury approved an indictment charging SPLC with 11 counts of wire fraud, false statements to a federally insured bank, and conspiracy to commit concealment money laundering. That sounds like serious trouble for the Montgomery, Alabama-based nonprofit. In its 55-year history of civil rights advocacy and public interest litigation, it has gained a lot of enemies thanks to its success at suing hate groups and otherwise exposing them in its public information programs, such as Hate Watch, and publications such as Intelligence Report. Among its distinctions, SPLC, again that's Southern Poverty Law Center, is known for bankrupting the Ku Klux Klan.
In recognition of its work, the organization's offices have been firebombed and its personnel have been targeted by conspiracies to commit violence. So how, you may be wondering, did SPLC become a cropper with the feds? Well, let's go back to the DOJ press release. The SPLC is manufacturing racism to justify its existence, said Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. Using donor money to allegedly profit off Klansmen cannot go unchecked. The SPLC allegedly engaged in a massive fraud operation to deceive their donors, enrich themselves, and hide their deceptive operations from the public, said FBI Director Kash Patel. They lied to their donors, vowing to dismantle violent extremist groups, and actually turned around and paid the leaders of these very extremist groups, even utilizing the funds to have these groups facilitate the commission of state and federal crimes. So, if I'm reading this correctly, the FBI alleges that the SPLC is running a fraud that takes money from unsuspecting donors to fight racist extremism, but in fact is spending donor money in ways prosecutors allege may have inadvertently strengthened the very extremist groups it claims to monitor. The case has generated some talking points that are easy enough to understand that even Donald Trump Jr. is able to regurgitate them on social media. Okay. For example, SPLC over a number of years made payments totaling more than $3 million to individuals associated with extremist groups such as the Klan, Unite the Right, and various neo-Nazi groups. That may sound bad unless you also understand that infiltrators are key conduits of intelligence that SPLC shared with others, including the FBI, until the Trump administration severed ties. I continue to be curious about information the indictment leaves out, such as how much the FBI knew about SPLC's intelligence gathering over the years and how the Bureau used that intel to monitor groups connected to violence and planning more mayhem. A key question will be whether prosecutors can distinguish SPLC's informant practices from those long used by law enforcement, which I expect to come up if the case goes to trial. False statements, wire fraud, and conspiracy are serious charges for any nonprofit to face in federal court. On the other hand, the question may be asked whether Trump's Department of Justice is serious enough and ethical enough to an entity to make these charges stick. I say that because this indictment has all the hallmarks of a political ploy. Yes, the investigation began during the Biden administration, which declined to file charges before being revived under Trump officials. And this is hardly the first time SPLC has come under fire for allegedly attempting to police speech and unfairly maligning conservatives for their viewpoints, not necessarily their actions, through the organization's intelligence project, quote unquote.
For example, The conservative religious organization Focus on the Family was added to the Intelligence Project's list partly because of its anti-LGBTQ rhetoric. The FBI field office in Richmond, Virginia, caused a political firestorm by associating radical traditionalist Catholics with potential extremist acts in an internal memo based in part on SPLC research. But in Trump's second term, federal officials took a more jaundiced view of the group. In 2024, The Guardian reported it described Turning Point USA, conservative activist Charlie Kirk's organization, as a case study of the hard right in 2024. Of course, Kirk was widely credited with winning widespread youth support for Trump's 2024 election campaign. A month after Kirk was assassinated in September last year, according to The Guardian, FBI Director Patel charged that the organization had been turned into a partisan smear machine and criticized its use of a hate map that defames mainstream Americans. He announced that the Bureau would sever its relationship with the center. I would not argue, and I think few would, that SPLC is perfectly virtuous as an organization or unerring in its judgments. Its speech and actions must be subject to the same scrutiny it applies to others. But if this turns out to be a political indictment, it is nothing less than a frontal attack on free speech and the rest of our cherished Bill of Rights. This from Tribune Content Agency writer Clarence Page, who, for complete disclosure, I think is necessary to mention that he is a black man.
Yeah, I still agree. Well, you are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. It is now 31 minutes past the hour. And My View. And Jim Costa of Depew, who loves to whistle a happy tune, writes, Remembering the Lost Art of Whistling. There was a yesterday when you could hear someone humming or whistling a tune anytime, any place. In the movie Snow White, the dwarf sang, Whistle while you work. It has been years since I've heard anyone whistle. Right. It's been years since I've heard anyone whistle or hum while working out, or for that matter, anywhere else. I hum. Well, in fact, I don't know if anyone even knows how to whistle anymore. I do. So does Don. In my youth, virtually every male could whistle, and many a woman as well. I personally still find whistling a satisfying habit. What killed this simple, artful pleasure? Well, the only plausible explanation is that music trends over the decades aren't conducive to those pastimes. Although rock and roll arrived in the 1950s with the likes of Chuck Berry and Buddy Holly, Burt Bacharach's Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head in 1969, and John Lennon's Imagine in 1971 still had words and music I could relate to. Since then, however, what young people hear as music, I hear only as high decibel dissonance with a pounding beat. Unlike songs of yore that told a story and spoke of love, today's lyrics seem to be a slight of stream of consciousness devoid of a cohesive message or emotional appeal, backed by a few cacophonous chords. Who could whistle or hum to that? If my opinion is valid, how then does one explain the enduring nature of this protean musical phenomenon that has altered our culture? I think our perception of almost everything begins in childhood. Just as our mother tongue is the sweetest to the ear, regardless of how well we master a second language, so it is with music. Countries use various stringed instruments to accompany singing. For instance, in Japan, the koto is commonly used, much as the sitar is in India and the zither in the Middle East. Also in the Appalachians, by the way. The same applies to woodwinds, which are cousins to our oboe. While their instruments may resemble ours, it's the orchestrations with their otherworldly vocal renderings that are so foreign to me. Nevertheless, however grating the music may be to my ears, it's obviously as sweet to the indigenous peoples in those countries as Gershwin's Concerto F is to me. Gershwin. So it must be with the generations of the 60s and beyond who were born to love what they first hear. we have the early rock and rollers who are forever devoted to the erotic crooning of Elvis. Countless groups throughout the following decades have risen to fame, all including a multitude of rappers. Have their adoring fans will one day wax nostalgic with memories of the groups that indelibly imprinted upon them their particular brand of music and defined their vanished youth. Most of the singers of my generation, like Frank Sinatra, Joe Williams, and Ella Fitzgerald, are gone, along with composers and lyricists like Rodgers and Hammerstein, or Arlen and Harburg. Nevertheless, we still have a few traditional singers left, such as Barbra Streisand and Liza Minnelli. Had any of the above celebrities been born in the last 50 years, they'd be anonymous names lost to time. Most young people today can't appreciate the music I grew up in the 1930s and 40s any more than I can appreciate theirs. Wow, he must be much older than I am. Because styles are constantly changing, I believe music may someday lend itself to the lost art of whistling or humming, or am I just whistling Dixie? I'm a child of the early 50s, but I still remember all that big band. My favorite stations are classical and jazz, and you can whistle those because I do it.
Well,
and hum them.
Pat Boone has a weekly program, an hour long, on the Sirius channel that does 50s music, and he always requests from his regular listeners a theme for his next show. And a few months back, the theme that was requested was songs that feature whistling. So he had an hour's worth of hits from the 50s that all had whistling in them.
There are a few.
Singing the Blues comes to mind right away. There's lots of them. And he found enough to fill the hour program easily.
Yeah.
All with tunes that I recognized. Of course, I grew up in the 50s.
And I grew up in the 50s, and I remember a lot of those.
Well, turning now to another voice column, this one from Bill Nowak, a member of the Sierra Club. Hochul shouldn't cave on state's climate law, he says. Our governor describes herself as a fighter for the people, and she started out that way when it comes to slowing down the climate crisis. Let's review a little history. It was under her leadership that the Climate Action Council met, took 35,000 public comments, and developed an aggressive, nation-leading plan to cut climate pollution. Her energy agency developed offshore wind projects, and she resisted President Trump's effort to shut them down. She signed the Climate Change Superfund Act so that polluters have to pay for the damage from extreme weather events that result from climate pollution. And last year, she signed the repeal of the 100-foot rule, saving New York's gas customers $580 million annually starting next year. But something has changed, and as she tries to weaken the state's commitments on climate, she's sounding more like an apologist for the fossil fuel industry than an independent fighter. Industry officials desperately want to maintain their profits and their power, and for them, the climate law is something that needs to be neutralized. They see that we are upset about our utility bills. The fact is that the cost of fracked gas and gas infrastructure used both for heating and for generating electricity is what's primarily driving our bills up. But they're spending massive sums trying to distract us into thinking that the small changes on our bills that go to helping people weatherize their homes and buy efficient appliances are the main problem. Their tactics remind me of the Wizard of Oz. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. Governor Kathy Hochul should be taking a lesson from the current war in the Middle East. A recent New York Times op-ed noted the price of oil could soar as high as $200 a barrel if the war drags on. Over the long term, this shock will accelerate a turn toward cleaner technologies. This is the first oil crisis in which clean alternatives to oil and gas, solar panels, wind turbines, electric vehicles, and batteries, are both inexpensive and widely available. There should be no more retreating on New York's climate law. Protecting the climate will also save us from the crushing debt the fossil fuel industry is forcing on us. A true, gutsy, Buffalo tough fighter would know this. Bill Nowak, a member of the Sierra Club, and he served on an advisory panel to New York's Climate Action Council. Those are his opinions. Very strong ones.
And I'm thinking about sitting on the dock of the bay with whistling in it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we move on to health and finance. Jacobs plans apartments at the Shearer Furniture site. I saw this last night but didn't read it. Jonathan Epstein writes, Nearly 2 years after buying the former Scherer & Sons furniture building after Douglas Jamal backed away from a deal, developer Christopher Jacobs is moving ahead with plans to redevelop the 4-story downtown building into 22 market-rate apartments. Jacobs, owner of Avalon Development Company, bought the 23,764 square foot building at its 118 to 122 Genesee Street in August of 2024 from the family that had owned and operated the solid wood furniture business for more than 127 years. He spent the last 20 months working on his redevelopment plan and securing financing. Now he says he's ready to proceed with a $7.5 million to $8 million project with financial backing from Community Bank and a historic designation that makes the project eligible for state and federal historic tax credits. And he is seeking Preservation Board approval on Thursday to be followed by Planning Board approval at a later date. It's a great project, he said. That Genesee Gateway corridor is a vibrant corridor, and we hope things happen on Ellicott to get that going, too. The building originally consisted of 2 structures, one built in 1880 at 122 Genesee and one constructed in 1884 at 124 to 126 Genesee. They were united as part of a remodeling in 1902 to create a single storefront and complex, but a neighboring building that was also part of this store was torn down in 1958 and replaced with a parking lot. Jacobs said the building needed complete renovation, but the Scherer family kept it in good shape and the roof is good. His proposal calls for 22 apartments, all 1-bedroom units, except for a 2-bedroom penthouse at the top floor. 3 of the apartments will be on the rear of the first floor, while a pair of storefront commercial spaces of less than 1,000 square feet each will face the street. Rents are expected to range from $1,500 to $2,000 per month. We'll have to be very aggressive on the marketing of the commercial space, Jacobs said. Entrepreneurs are very interesting people because they come up with ideas you never thought of. The project would be financed with just under $2 million in tax credits plus a loan, and more than I thought of his own equity, although he's still trying to get the numbers to work. He's obtained a demolition permit and hopes to start work soon with a completion at the end of 2027. It's a challenging time with costs and interest rates, but Community Bank is committed to the financing, he said. I'm optimistic. I believe in the building. I believe in the block. I'm still bullish on our ability to do it, but we'll know that soon. Jamal initially planned to buy and redevelop the Scherer building because of its proximity to his Mohawk Ramp and Simon Electric Company property nearby, which he's still hoping to redevelop into 450 to 600 apartments plus retail space. He had envisioned a $20 million redevelopment of Scherer into first-floor retail and 40 upstairs apartment. But with the construction costs soaring and interest rates doubling, Jamal has backed away from the purchase and has still sold or put many of his Buffalo holdings up for sale. So,
Meanwhile, Jonathan Epstein reports that the 3rd and 4th phases of redevelopment of the Northland Corridor Light Industrial Hub continues to prepare more buildings for lease and occupancy by new tenants, with the Buffalo Urban Development Corporation this week approving $1.6 million in additional spending to address problems discovered along the way. The BUDC this week authorized another $1.26 million for LaChase Construction Services for issues found during the winter at 541 East Sullivan Avenue and at 612 and 683 Northland Avenue in the 3rd phase of work. On East Sullivan, the contractor found another underground structure that has to be removed and taken to a licensed disposal facility. It also found conditions on multiple walls that need to be aligned and braced before terracotta can be ordered and applied, and a new sanitary sewer line has to be designed and installed after workers couldn't locate a site that was believed to be on site. At 612 Northland, workers found concrete foundations under the pavement that have to be removed and identified areas of water infiltration that have to be repaired. The BUDC also asked LaChase to treat the retaining wall with an anti-graffiti product. LaChase also needs a permit from the Buffalo Sewer Authority to fix a problem with a head wall at the end of a stormwater pipe under the south parking lot at Northland Central at 683 Northland. The BUDC also agreed to create a $245,000 reserve so that other issues that arise can be handled quickly. And LaChase sought an extension of 190 days to complete Phase 3, which puts it at March 10th of next year, just 18 days before the deadline set under the BUDC's grant from the U.S. Economic Development Administration. The agency also approved $89,500 for additional construction administration, grant administration, and environmental work by Wendell Companies, a $50,000 contract with Whitestone Associates to inspect Wendell's work, and $70,000 for Ravi Engineering for air and lead monitoring. A lot going on there at the Northland Corridor.
Yep. Well, as part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Then we have Fazo Rosemarine Benuti. She's 81, of the town of Tonawanda Township. Miklas James Leon, age 80. Polvino Richard Charles, I didn't get that one, 85 years old, and Richard Schwagler. If you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. So,
no major obituaries today,
No,
so we're going to move on to the horoscopes.
Move on.
Georgia Nichols says, for happy birthday for Friday, May 1st, you're tenacious, compassionate, and nurturing. You have acute powers of intellectual perception. Take time this year for reflection. You might find yourself renewing your interest in spiritual or religious beliefs.
Yeah.
For Aries, because your communications with others are grounded and realistic today, not only is this a great day for discussions with others, but it's also an excellent day for writers. Tonight, check your finances. Taurus, financial and business affairs are favored today because you'll be realistic about issues and pay attention to details. Whatever you do might attract money or earnings to you. Tonight, be reasonable. Gemini, today Venus is in your sign dancing with stern Saturn, which makes you want to live up to your duties and obligations in a relationship. Tonight, work. Cancer, this is a friendly, sociable week, and today in particular, some of you might explore a secret love affair or a hidden relationship with someone of an age difference. Tonight, socialize. Leo, today you might be attracted to someone older, or you might act like a guide or mentor to someone who seeks counsel from you. Tonight, relax at home. Virgo, you make an excellent impression on parents, bosses, and people in authority today. They see you as someone who is willing to accept obligations. Tonight, an important discussion. Libra, today your ruler Venus is dancing beautifully with Saturn, which will help you study and learn. It will also give you the patience and attention to detail to make elaborate travel arrangements. Tonight, check your money. Scorpio, financial discussions as well as talks about wills and inheritances will go well. People will be reasonable and willing to deal with practical matters. Tonight, show respect. For Sagittarius, this is a solid day to discuss the reality of an emotional relationship or any relationship that is very close to you. Tonight, solitude. Capricorn, it will be easy to function in your job today because coworkers will be helpful. Tonight, friendships. Aquarius, romance is in the stars today. In fact, romance with someone of an age difference is very likely. Tonight, you're respected. Pisces, you might redecorate where you live today in a way that shows a commitment to where you are living. Tonight, explore and learn. A few bits about romance today, including a couple of them with people with a different age group. I don't know what that's all about.
Well,
there she is. On this day in history, in 1486, Christopher Columbus presented his plan to Spain's Queen Isabella for a sea voyage to seek a western route to Asia. Didn't work out very well. We landed here instead. In 1866, the Memphis Massacre of 1866 began as a white mob that attacked black residents, killing 46 and injuring others, as well as destroying buildings, including homes, churches, and schools. In 1893, the World's Columbian Exposition, aka the Chicago World's Fair, opened to the public. Inventions, devices, and foods that were introduced or touted at the fair included a moving walkway, the Ferris wheel, an electric vehicle, juicy fruit gum, and peanut butter. Oh, a bunch of interesting stuff there. In 1898, in the first major battle of the Spanish-American War, the United States destroyed the Spanish Pacific Fleet in Manila Bay in the Philippines. In 1915, as World War I engulfed Europe, the International Congress of Women met in The Hague, Netherlands, to adopt resolutions on peace and women's suffrage. In 1931, New York's Empire State Building was dedicated. It had risen in just over a year to become the tallest building in the world at that time, with a height of 1,250 feet. In 1941, Citizen Kane made its debut, failing at the box office, but later receiving 9 Academy Award nominations. And in 1971, Amtrak began operating the first federally run passenger rail service across the United States.
Well,
It's quite a bunch of interesting stuff in history on this day. And we have a little bit of time left and a couple of articles worth reading here. So we're going to turn to another part of the financial section. And I think JJ's got a piece from the first quarter hour that we had to cut out because we ran out of time. But
yeah, I see a couple of good ones, so I'm going to go back and read that for starts.
okay, well, here Matt Glynn says, CEOs here have a dim outlook on business now and in the future. Western New York CEOs are gloomy about the state's business conditions, and they don't expect things to improve. In a survey of 90 local CEOs by Siena Research, 73% of them said they believe business conditions in the state were worse than a year ago. That compared with 52% who said they felt that way in the 2025 survey. Looking ahead, 59% of the local CEOs in the upstate New York Business Leaders Survey said they expect business conditions in the state to worsen this year, compared to only 40% who responded that way last year. A real indicator of the tenor of this survey is that overall, CEOs, whether it be across all of New York or specifically in Western New York, feel as though 2023 did not live up to their expectations. It wasn't as good an economic year as they had projected or hoped for. And unfortunately, as they look ahead to what 2026 is going to bring, there's a distinctively pessimistic view. The survey was conducted between late October and mid-January. Levy calculates an index measuring the CEO's view of the challenges business face. A score of 100 indicates an equal split between optimism and pessimism. The score for Western New York was 48.9, plunging from a 73.4 a year before. That was the lowest score since 39 in 2008 amid the Great Recession, and far below a 110.4 in 2014. Right now, the confidence among the CEOs, although not at an all-time low, is eye-catchingly low at this point, Levy said in a presentation hosted by the Buffalo-Niagara Partnership. The local CEOs shared their perspective on the outlook and the challenges they face. 44% said they expect their revenues to stay about the same this year, while 30% project a decrease. 39% expect their profits to stay about the same this year, while an additional 39% expect their profits to fall. The CEOs were asked to identify one strategy they planned most to enhance their profitability this year. The top answer at 37% was price increases. The CEOs were also asked to identify challenges they were concerned with. The top 3 most cited answers were government regulation, taxation, and healthcare costs. Despite their downbeat view, 67% of the CEOs said they expected to keep their workforce about the same size. 24% planned to increase their workforce, while 9% planned to reduce theirs. 60% of the CEOs said the state government was doing a poor job of creating a business climate to help their businesses succeed. There's a clear takeaway from these surveys that the CEOs we interview across all these industry sectors tend to feel as though the government in Albany simply doesn't appreciate, understand, or sufficiently support their efforts to have successful businesses and to provide an economic environment that not only their employees can be successful, but the people of Western New York can be successful, Levy said. 43% of the CEOs felt the federal government was doing a poor job of creating a business climate to help their businesses succeed. What do the local CEOs want Governor Kathy Hochul and the New York State Legislature to focus on? Their top response was business income tax reform, 57%, followed by spending cuts, 53%, and personal income tax reform, 51%. How are the CEOs handling the Trump administration tariffs? 44% said they were passing additional costs to customers via price increases, and 28% said they were planning to do so. 63% said the tariffs had resulted in delivery days, longer lead times, and 38% said they had either shifted to domestic suppliers or were planning to do so. For all the attention on AI, 60% of the local CEOs said they were not planning to invest in AI and machine learning assets this year. Michael Durbin, CEO of Kobe Incorporated in Buffalo, said companies may find AI tools can help them solve workforce challenges. Kobe uses AI-enabled technology on its production floor, he said. We have a gentleman who has never actually done production welding by hand, but he uses one of our AI welders to weld.
Yeah.
Well, interesting.
Now, Trump touts blockade as oil briefly hits war's high, and this is from Kate Sullivan of Bloomberg News. President Trump said he was sticking with the naval blockade of Iranian ports even as oil prices hit a wartime high amid concerns the vital Strait of Hormuz would not reopen anytime soon. Their economy is crashing. The blockade is incredible, Trump told reporters at the White House. Their economy is a disaster, so we'll see how long they hold out. Oil prices steadied after surging earlier in the day with little sign that Washington and Tehran were moving closer to a deal, with the U.S. doubling down on a blockade and strident new comments from Iran's new leader. Brent futures initially rose to $126 a barrel, their highest level since the conflict began, before easing to $114. Prices are up more than 8% this week. Traders are factoring in the possibility of a return to hostilities and a prolonged shutdown of the strait, which is crucial for global oil and gas flows, but has been effectively shut down since the U.S. and Israel started the war on February 28th. Pump prices across the parts of the U.S. have also risen sharply, with the national average at fresh highs and retail gasoline in California skyrocketing above $6 a gallon. That's increasingly becoming a concern for Trump's Republican Party heading into the midterm elections. The gas will go down, Trump said. As soon as the war is over, it'll drop like a rock. Earlier on Thursday, Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, also cast doubt on the likelihood of a deal, giving a rare statement in which he vowed not to give up the country's nuclear or missile technologies. He also signaled Tehran would keep control of the Strait of Hormuz. Khamenei replaced his father, Ali, who was killed on the first day of the conflict. He's not been seen or heard in public since his appointment, with several reports saying he was badly injured in the same airstrike on his father. At the same time, U.S. military commanders are set to brief Trump on options on Thursday, Axios reported, citing unnamed sources. CENTCOM, which oversees American forces in the Middle East, has prepared a plan for a short wave of strikes to break the negotiating deadlock, Axios says. Trump wants to end the Iran war, but not on the terms proposed by Tehran, said Becca Wasser and Chris Kennedy, analysts of the Bloomberg Economics. That suggests the question is no longer whether he escalates to push for a better offer, but when and how. We think the most likely window for action is within the next 2 weeks, and that renewed U.S. strikes are the most likely course. Iran has said it won't reopen the strait to commercial vessels until the U.S. lifts its blockade. It's unclear how long Iran has left before it runs out of oil storage and is forced to cut production. Signs of strain on the Iranian economy have emerged in recent days, but the currency weakening to a fresh low. So.
Well, you're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for today, May 1st, 2026, on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are
J.J. Patek
and Don Williams.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
And we're back.
We're back.
We'll continue now with the reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
J.J. Patek.
and Don Williams. Turning to the local news, Erie County Legislature has passed a law for the second time allowing young Erie County hunters aged 12 and 13 to legally shoot deer. The legislature on Thursday also passed a law against commercial establishments collecting and using customers' biometric data. Erie County was the last remaining county outside the New York City area to ban adolescent children from hunting deer with a firearm. Other counties allow it after youths take a hunting and firearm safety course and are accompanied by an adult mentor while hunting. The ban for 12 and 13-year-olds has been a sore spot for some in Erie County, which sells the most hunting licenses by far of any county in the state. In a show of greater bipartisan solidarity and against the wishes of County Executive Mark Poloncarz, legislators voted 7-3 to adopt the youth hunting law. That is one vote short of creating a veto-proof majority. Legislator Chris Green, a Republican from Clarence, who supports the law, was absent yesterday. If Poloncarz were to veto the law and all legislators were present with unchanged positions, the legislature would have enough votes to override a veto. The road would be slightly tougher, though, since legislator Lawrence Dupre, a Democrat from Buffalo, who had originally stated he supported the law, changed his position, leaving no more room for defections or absences. 5 years ago, the 11-member legislature voted 6-5 in favor of opting into a state law allowing youth hunting. At the time, the law was new, and despite some bipartisan support, a majority of Democrats opposed the opt-in measure, expressing concerns about the danger of children handling weapons in the woods. Children that young handling weapons in the woods. Poloncarz voted the measure, citing the inherent danger of allowing 12 and 13-year-olds to shoot deer. Before the state law was first adopted in 2021, children as young as 12 were already permitted with adult oversight to use firearms to shoot small game, including game birds, squirrels, rabbits, and coyotes. But New York was the only state to forbid youth until they were 14 from using firearms to shoot deer. Instead, those adolescents were limited to hunting deer with a compound bow and arrow. State law changed in 2021 so that children as young as 12 would be allowed to use a rifle, shotgun, muzzle loader, or a crossbow with supervision of a parent, guardian, or experienced adult mentor at age 21 or older, if counties opted into the state provision. Poloncarz vetoed a county opt-in measure with citing safety concerns. He also referenced his time as a youth hockey coach, saying his experience reinforced his belief that children that young cannot be trusted to responsibly handle firearms for hunting. When the law was reintroduced this time, Poloncarz again publicly stated he would veto it. After the legislature's vote yesterday, spokesman Peter Anderson said the law requires another public hearing by the county executive office and that Poloncarz would make his intentions clear after hearing that public input. Dupre said he supports programs that include gun safety training, but he changed his vote because his community is only 2 weeks away from commemorating the 4-year anniversary of the Tops mass shooting on May 14, 2022, when an 18-year-old white gunman targeted black patrons at the grocery store, killing 10 of them. Pushing for a vote yesterday showed lack of cultural sensitivity given upcoming memorial ceremonies, he said, noting that residents have expressed their concerns to him. This is such a sensitive subject that I don't think we had a right to do it now. I don't think we had to do it right now, he said, expressing dismay about the vote's timing. That's something I expressed. I don't think this is something my community should have to talk about or be focused on right now. Aside from Dupre, Jean Vinal, a Democrat from Amherst, Taisha St. Jean Tard, Democrat from Buffalo, also opposed the law. Vinal pointed out that Erie County would become the most densely populated county in the state to opt into the youth hunting law, though the Department of Environmental Conservation does place restrictions on where hunting can occur. Those in favor of the law said the law leaves parents to judge whether their children are mature enough to handle firearms, and that it's wrong to force hunting families to travel out of Erie County to hunt. Law sponsors Frank Todaro, a Republican from Lancaster, and Lindsay Larigo, a Republican from West Seneca, both of whom have hunted, expressed overall optimism that the law can withstand any veto by the county executive with 8 legislators in favor of it. I do think we'll have the ability to override the veto, Larigo said. I don't know how you can vote for it today, and then when it gets vetoed, say suddenly you don't agree with it. A major factor in gaining more Democratic votes was a report released in February by the state's Department of Environmental Conservation about the youth deer hunting law. Aside from referencing the overwhelming popularity of the law among youth hunters, the report also stated that during the first 4 years of this pilot program, there have been no reported instances of hunting-related shooting incidents, rules violations, or license revocations as a result of the law. Democratic Cheektowaga Town Supervisor Brian Nowak yesterday urged the legislature to approve the proposed law, citing that report. And another topic, more controversial or equally controversial maybe, the Erie County Legislature yesterday also passed a law in a party line vote banning commercial establishments from collecting, using, or selling customers' biometric data. The law passed with all 7 Democrats voting in favor and all 3 Republicans present voting against. Biometric data includes information such as facial recognition, voice recognition, and fingerprint, eye scans, and gestures. It applies to companies and organizations, both for-profit and nonprofit, that provide goods and services to the public. It prohibits these commercial establishments from collecting, storing, procuring, using, selling, or otherwise monetizing biometric data in commercial settings. Any establishment that already collects this information must provide the county a plan to delete or destroy this data. Repeat violations of the law can result in fines from between $1,000 and $5,000 a day. The law also includes multiple exceptions meant to exclude many common instances of biometric use that are already broadly accepted. That includes the use of biometric data by governments and for compliance with federal, state, or local laws. The law also would not apply to anyone using biometric data to access phones and other electronic devices for their personal use or for employer-issued communication. It also wouldn't apply to automatic face detection services used by social media applications. Republicans who voted against the law said they aren't shutting the door on further conversation about concerns over the use of biometric data, but there were still unanswered questions. They also suggested the county law could result in legal challenges from businesses.
And also, critics say restaurant isn't a good fit for park. Now that I know what that thing is down there. From Stephen Watson. A plan to sell tacos and margaritas at seasonal restaurant within Tonawanda Park is turning the stomachs of some Tonawanda residents. City officials got an earful at a recent Common Council meeting from critics who say Papi Grande's restaurant isn't a good fit for the park along the Niagara River. That's the city of Tonawanda, not the town of Tonawanda. Mm-hmm. They say the shipping container restaurant is unattractive. Sure is. The venue takes up prime riverfront space, and there are good reasons why alcohol isn't allowed in Tonawanda Park, and the lease agreement isn't a financial boon to the city. I think it's a bad idea in all respects, Gene Suski, a Niagara Street resident, said during a recent public hearing. Tonawanda leaders say they have heard from more fans and opponents of the Mexican-themed restaurant since the Buffalo News reported on the plan in February. The cash-strapped city will benefit from the Pappy's lease payments and from an increase in sales tax revenue, proponents said, when the restaurant convinces more park-goers to stay longer and spend more money in Tonawanda. My message would be don't take the comments from that night as a feeling of the whole community, Mayor Bill Strasburg said this week. I agree that people had issues that live near it, and rightfully so, but again, I'm looking out for the entire city and try to turn this thing around. We have to try things that we haven't tried in the past. Pappy Grand's co-owner, Courtney Spano, declined to directly address criticism of the project. We're grateful for the citizens and the council for being supportive of us, she said in an interview. The Common Council approved the lease with Spano and Pappy Grand's in February, but the parties started discussing a proposal for a waterfront restaurant in Tonawanda a year earlier. Jimmy Spano, Courtney's husband and co-owner, previously said he was looking to move his seasonal restaurant from Ohio Street in Buffalo's Old First Ward, where it operated for the past 4 summers. The Spanos also run year-round Pappy Grand's restaurants in Amherst and Lancaster. The seasonal Pappy Grand's offers a scaled-back version of the full menu, focusing on tacos and appetizers with a full bar. Jimmy Spano explored some sites in North Tonawanda before settling on Tonawanda, officials said. North Tonawanda Mayor Austin Tylik said he urged Spano to consider a location at Gratwick Riverside Park, but the restaurateur preferred a site near the city's downtown waterfront, something Tylik said was impractical. Tylik suggested Spano reach out to Tonawanda's then-mayor, John White. White embraced the idea with Christopher Fisher, who represents the Tonawanda Common Council's 2nd Ward, and tried finding a suitable location, Fisher said this week. Fisher, a Democrat, said the bipartisan effort fizzled last spring when White, a Republican, deemed a potential site along a heavily traveled bike trail in Niawanda Park unusable. After Strasburg defeated White in last fall's mayoral election, Jimmy Spano reached out to Strasburg to revive the plans. Strasburg and the Spanos settled on the same park site previously rejected by White, Fisher said. Courtney Spano lauded White and Strasburg, saying the plan stalled last year primarily because the Spanos ran out of time before the 2025 summer dining season. We wanted to be somewhere close to the water with the view, so we took several different spots into consideration, she said. The city of Tonawanda was supportive of us, and we chose them. The Common Council, with little debate in February, approved a 3-year lease with Spano Enterprises, LLC. The company will pay the city $11,000 the first year, $11,500 the second year, and $12,000 the third year of the agreement. The restaurant is expected to operate from May through late summer, with the structure staying in place year-round. The restaurant would serve lunch and dinner 7 days a week and remain open until Niawanda closes at 10 p.m. The shipping container has been installed between Niawanda Park bandshell and a public bathroom. Courtney Spano said cosmetic improvements are needed after the container structure endured a fierce buffalo winter. The Spanos must also install the fence that will mark off its property, a requirement of the venue's liquor license. Crews dug a ditch running from the public bathroom to the restaurant structure. Officials said that's where water and electric lines serving the restaurant will be laid. Courtney Spano said there's still a chance Pappy Grand's can open by Tuesday's Cinco de Mayo holiday, though challenging weather has slowed progress. Anything is possible, she said. The company's application for a license to sell alcohol there is pending approval from the State Liquor Authority, online records show. Alcohol use is prohibited in Niawanda Park, so the Common Council is needed to amend the city code to permit its sale and consumption on Pappy Grand's premises. The public hearing on the resolution drew a vocal crowd to April 21st council meeting, spurred on by posts in a Tonawanda-oriented Facebook group. Some attendees said this was the first they had heard of the restaurant, despite prior news reports on the lease agreement. Most speakers raised objections, worrying about the loss of parking spaces and picnic tables to restaurant customers, for example, or misbehaving if Pappy Grand's customers drink to excess. Suski, the Niagara Street resident, questioned why the city gave up valuable parkland instead of steering the restaurant to one of the many vacant parcels or shuttered businesses in Tonawanda. Good question. That area is used for concerts and car shows, craft shows, and yoga classes, she said. There's really no reason to put a giant eyesore there. Bill Simon, who lives on Plymouth Drive, said it's a bad idea to allow alcohol at Niawanda Park and that the business will burden city services with minimal financial benefits. We're getting $11,000 a year, which isn't even $1,000 a month in your budget, Simon said. At the hearing's close, the Common Council voted 3-0. 2 members were absent to permit alcohol use at Poppy Grands. I hope the park gets too busy, Fisher, the council member said after the meeting. I would love to have that problem because that means people are coming to the city of Tonawanda. Fisher noted either party can walk away from the lease after 1 year with minimal disruption. Strasburger, retired Tonawanda police chief, said the city will step in quickly if Poppy Grands creates problems, and he pointed out other nearby establishments already serve alcohol. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result, the mayor told News. We have real issues and financial issues we have to resolve. Both Fisher and Strasburg said the city deliberately worked with a restaurant that wouldn't compete with Mississippi Muds, known for its hot dogs and burgers, and Old Man River, which features casual dining seafood. The restaurants owned by the Barafato family have operated across from the park for decades. We're going to take the same approach that we have for the last 39 years, and we're just going to do what we do, try to do it to the best of our ability, and then we'll see what happens, Frank Barafato said in an interview. Well, they could make it look nicer. It is an eyesore.
I have to mention, there's a picture here on the page where,
That's horrible.
Where the article begins. Eyesore is a kind way of describing it.
Well, I don't want to say what I really think. We're on public radio.
Just as well. Interesting, though, the seasonal Poppy Grands offers a scaled-back version of the full menu, focusing on tacos and appetizers with a full bar. Clearly, they're emphasizing alcohol, and it's no secret that alcohol is the biggest moneymaker for restaurants of this nature.
Well, there's restaurants right across the street that are closed. Mm-hmm. You have and they have their own parking areas.
Well, we've run out of time in this quarter hour. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News and on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service, and it is 15 minutes past the hour. So it's time to turn to the sports section.
Sports.
And, well, guess what? There's news about the Sabres on the sports section.
Surprise.
Don't think for a second that Tage Thompson is bummed that he hasn't scored in the last 4 games of his first career playoff series. The Buffalo Sabres top dog up front has been watching these postseason showdowns on TV for far too long, and now he's in the middle of the fray. So there's no way he's going to get down in the mouth over things. The Sabres have another chance to close out the Boston Bruins tonight in TD Garden, and they're still leading this series 3-2. By the time the puck is dropped for Game 6, they will have had to sit on David Pasternak's overtime goal for nearly 3 days. But the mood at practice and inside the dressing room yesterday remained upbeat. You didn't feel tension. It was another day at work with a major opportunity ahead in a building where they have already won 2 games in this series. It feels great, Thompson said Thursday in KeyBank Center before the Sabres jetted to Beantown. That's what it's all about, big games. I've been fortunate enough to play in some big games and come out on the right side. Once you get that taste of winning, it's a drug. It's all you want. Being out of it for so long and finally being here really makes you hungry to see how far you can go. Goal scorers go through dry spells all the time. Thompson's season is typical of what big names endure. In a season in which he finished with 40 goals and 81 points, Thompson had just 1 goal in the first 7 games. He also had a 6-game drought and 2 other runs of 4 games. Those don't mean much in the regular season, but they get magnified pretty starkly under this spotlight. Thompson had 13 shots on goal in the first 2 games of the series, which featured his 2-goal outburst late in the third period of Game 1 that got the Sabres even. He totaled only 8 shots in the last 3 games. He had only 2 hit the net in the Game 5 overtime thriller, and that was after getting 24 minutes and 30 seconds of ice time. To be honest with you, I've been really happy with my game, Thompson said. You don't want to be comfortable. You always want to strive for more and be better. But I think my game as a whole has been really solid. You know that in the playoffs, you're just not going to get as many opportunities and as many looks. Everyone is so dialed in defensively and making sure they're taking time and space away, it's a lot harder to get shots off and get to the net. We know the old playoff bromide of your top players have to be your top players, and Pasternak made the play for Boston at crunch time Tuesday, about 30 seconds after Jeremy Swayman had made a point-blank save on Alex Tuck. But plenty of times in these settings, your top players get shut down and you have to get some secondary scoring. Just look at what happened elsewhere yesterday. Vegas beat Utah in double overtime on a shorthanded goal by Brett Howden, and Philadelphia eliminated Pittsburgh in a 1-0 overtime game on a screenshot by defenseman Cam York, who had not scored since January 21st. Also, Montreal took a 3-2 lead in its series against Tampa Bay with a 3-2 win on an early third-period goal by fourth-liner Alexander Texier. Sabres coach Lindy Ruff pointed out how Connor McDavid started slowly against Anaheim, referring to the Edmonton captain's 2 points in the first 3 games against the Ducks. A game ago, the Bruins were talking about how they needed more from Morgan Geekie and Pasternak, Ruff said. This is the time of year when I think your attention towards your best players always comes to a high line. Thompson had an unbelievable chance in the third period where Peyton Krebs fed it across the crease and he didn't finish. If that goes, you're probably not asking me this question today, but it didn't go in. We know with our best players, we're depending on them to be difference makers. But the cool thing about our team all year long has been if the top guys weren't producing for a few games, we had other guys who were helping us win hockey games. And it's really what our team has been about. Thompson is +5 in the series, and his line has outscored the Bruins 4-0 at 5-on-5 while building a 33-19 advantage in scoring chances. One issue, Swayman is running a .964 save percentage with Thompson on the ice. It would be nice to find the back of the net, but this is fun. I like a challenge, Thompson said. I think everyone in the room wants to play in games that are hard and games you have to fight through, compete and get gritty and get around the net. That's the way you're going to score in the playoffs. You're not typically going to be wide open in the slot shooting it. You have to find ways to beat guys to get to the net. Thompson had a game-high 4 blocked shots on Tuesday and was 4-3 in the faceoff circle. Still, other parts of his game aren't slipping while he's still looking to score. Everyone has to do everything that's going to help you win, he said. Those are the little things that stack up over the game. Blocking shots, hits, all the little things that don't always show up on the stat sheet or maybe aren't pretty to the fans. Those little 50-50 puck battles, defensive box outs, stuff like that, your teammates make a difference. The Sabres made lots of plays in taking games 3 and 4 in Boston by a combined score of 9-2. They're going to need that kind of all-in approach again. A Boston win to force Game 7 here on Sunday will prompt quite the community freakout about blowing a 3-1 series lead for the first time in franchise history. The Sabres need to end this one in Game 6. It's critical for their marquee men to do some damage. We knew it was going to be a tough series. We knew it was going to be back and forth, Thompson said. They're a good team, and we can't let that affect us mentally. We're still in a good position here to close out the series. We've just got to continue to do things that are working for us.
And from Rachel Lindsay, the Sabres return to Boston with an appetite for winning in tow. Alex Tuck tossed his gear into his equipment bag Thursday afternoon at KeyBank Center and then dove into the questions that faced the Buffalo Sabres as they continue their Stanley Cup playoffs first-round series against the Boston Bruins. Packing was a necessity as the Sabres again hit the road in an effort to close out the best-of-7 series against the Bruins. The Sabres faced Boston in Game 6 at 7:30 p.m. Friday at TD Garden. The Sabres lead the series 3-2, but lost a chance to close it out when the Bruins won 2-1 on David Pasternak's overtime goal in Game 5 on Tuesday at KeyBank Center. The overtime loss put the Sabres back on a plane to Massachusetts, preparing for another series-clinching scenario. There is no time to dwell on past games, said Sabres center Josh Norris, who's expected to return to the lineup after missing games 3, 4, and 5 due to an unspecified injury. Even the last shift, if it was a bad shift, you've got to get over it and move on. I think we've done a great job in responding, whether it's a good game or a bad game. In a near-perfect world, the Sabres would have closed out the series on Tuesday. They could have enjoyed a few days off and prepared for their second-round opponent, either Montreal or Tampa Bay. The Canadiens lead the series 3-2. Pasternak's goal squashed those visions, and it gave the Sabres some experience to take back with them to Boston. They learned what it's like to play in a game that could potentially clinch the series. They now lean on that knowledge as they go into Game 6 and know where they fell short in Game 5. We've got to make sure we can bury our opportunities, Tuck said. We've got to make sure we come out, battle a little bit better. And I thought we gave ourselves chances to win that game. I thought Elijah, that's goalie Alex Lyon, was incredible for us and gave us a lot of chances to win that game, and we fell short. We've got to be a little bit better in all areas. They know how to have change they know they have to change the activity, but keep the mindset that helped them forego a series lead. You're going to try and close out the game, Norris said. We have had some great looks, and the goalie made a couple of good saves. And that's just how it goes. It's a game of inches, and they were able to take that one. We tried to close out the last one, and we're going to have to try to close out this one. The Sabres are definitely packing one thing on this trip, their collective composure. Not to panic, Senator Tage Thompson said. We're in a good spot, and I've liked our game. It didn't go our way the other night and very easily could have gone on the other side of that. We have plenty of chances to score and take a lead, and even in overtime we've had some looks. It's one of those games where it's just kind of a toss-up, and when you can't let that affect you mentally, you've got to get ready to play another game. We've got another great opportunity ahead of us in Boston. Sabres coach Lindy Ruff has a clear expectation of what his team must do to close out the series Friday. Each player has to embrace the chance they have individually and collectively to help the Sabres earn their first playoff series win since April 20th of 2007. That year, with Ruff as coach, they completed a 4-1 series win against New York Islanders in a first-round series with a 4-3 victory at then HSBC Arena. There's going to be an opportunity inside the game to be a difference maker for a lot of different guys, Ruff said. I can't tell you who that person is going to be because a lot of times might not be the one on your top guys. It might be a net front candidate who tips the puck. There's going to be an opportunity inside the game playing to our system, and you're going to have to take advantage of it. Whether it's in the first period, second period, third period, just be ready to embrace that opportunity. Make the right play at the right time. The Sabres have packed their sticks, pads, gear, as well as their clothing, personal electronics, and toiletries for one last trip to Boston. And they are bringing one more essential, their self-assurance. This is the kind of hockey everyone wants to play, whether everything's on the line, when you've got to show up and make a play to help your team win, Thompson said. We've got the guys in the room that are those guys, and I have full confidence in this group. I know everyone else does.
Well, they won 2 or 3 games in Boston already. Lindy likes playing on the road. The home distractions aren't there, so we're trying to be optimistic about this.
I liked how quiet it got when Boston lost that other game.
Yeah.
You could have heard a pin drop in that arena.
Well, there's some former UB players prepping for rookie minicamps in the NFL. Linebacker Red Murdoch was the only University of Buffalo football player selected in last week's draft, but 7 college teammates of the Denver Broncos draft pick have received NFL rookie minicamp invites. NFL teams will host rookie minicamp over the next 2 weekends, and Tyler Doty, an offensive lineman from Gasport, was invited to camp by the Seattle Seahawks, whose minicamps are Friday and Saturday. The Kansas City Chiefs, who picked up running back L.J. Henderson, runs their camp on the same days. Edge rusher Kobe Stewart and offensive lineman Trevor Brock each will work out with Tennessee Friday and Saturday. Brock was invited by the Buffalo Bills and will work out for the team May 8th and 9th alongside former kicker Jack Howes. Edge rusher Malin White, invited by the New York Giants, and linebacker Mitchell Gosner, who is training with the Los Angeles Chargers, attend their minicamps May 8th through 10th. Arkansas running back Mike Washington Jr., a former Bulls standout, attends at Las Vegas camp Friday to Sunday, and Murdoch's camp with the Broncos runs May 8th through 10th. UB coach Pete Lembo received a 2027 commitment Wednesday from Zane Johnson, a 6'1" quarterback from Trinity High School in Louisville, Kentucky. According to 247 Sports, Johnson has received 8 other offers, including Kentucky, Louisville, and Akron. So, some exciting news about UB players and former players.
And from Clevis Murray, Williamsville North track team becomes dominant. 6 athletes who won 8 Section 6 titles last season are members of the Williamsville North track and field team, establishing the Spartans as one of Western New York's premier programs. Coach Justin Craddock walks his athletes down the hallways of the school to see plaques on the wall that belong to their former teammates or the athletes before them. That includes athletes who committed to something bigger than personal success and who brought them in when when the program was still finding its footing in the shadow of COVID-19. Now Craddock wants his current group to put their names up there too. It's like football winning at Highmark, Craddock said. It's the team title. The first time we got it, it really opened the eyes of the kids that were there. That culture shift has produced one of the region's best programs. Last spring, 6 Williamsville North athletes won outdoor track and field section titles. 5 of them are seniors this spring, including Melia Kupchanko, Aria Katrabon, Mary Kate Dolan, Gabby Hovack, and Josh Newman, making the Class AA championship meet May 27th at West Seneca West an emotional one. It'll be the last team event for this group. Kupchanko won the 800 and 1,500 meter runs last spring and has been the leader of the girls' distance group. Catrabone, a 4-time state meet medalist for the triple jump, has consistently showed up at the biggest moments of the season. Her family background includes her father, Jeff, an All-American wrestler at Michigan, and her brother, Cameron, a state champion and All-American at Michigan, which is why championship pressure doesn't faze her. Ari has medaled in the state meet 4 times, Craddock said. Since her sophomore year, she's medaled at every state meet in the triple jump. She's a hard person to beat in a championship season. Dolan has quietly become one of the section's most reliable high jumpers, a progression Craddock describes with genuine admiration. 2 or 3 years ago, she was afraid to jump and try new events. Now she's confident, having made back-to-back state meets, indoors and outdoors. Hovack is a pentathlete by designation, but does everything Craddock needs her to do on any given day, from pole vault and shot put to hurdles, sprints, and relays. Last year, she won the pentathlon with 2,876 points. This year, she has an insurance policy on legs. If I told her she had to do this event, she might give me a look, Craddock said, but she always does it. Newman anchors the boys' side, where the program is still ascending. The senior shot putter switched from the glide to the rotational technique the summer before his junior year, a gamble that paid off when he won the Section 6 meet at 50 feet, 2 inches. He spent the offseason lifting and throwing, pausing only for football before returning to the weight room at the moment the season ended. His goal this spring is simple: get past 60 feet. Oh, there's a goal for you. Newman is measured about defending the title. I'm not going to take anything for granted, Newman said. At the end of the day, it's still anyone's state trip. That humility is something that Craddock works hard to instill. The program's accountability standards are non-negotiable. Miss more than 1 practice per week consistently, and you're off the team regardless of talent. There are 10 push-ups for swearing. The coach staff includes co-coach Caitlin Triantafilou. I think we hold kids accountable when they rise to the occasion, Craddock said. They work extremely hard. Once they realize that, it's like a snowball downhill. At the section team meet, Craddock believes Lancaster will push them the hardest, but admits that Hamburg, Star Point, and Williamsville East could still make it competitive. Still, he's confident in his team. If you look on paper, we're going to be a hard team to beat, Craddock said. If we execute, we'll be hard. The athlete who will be around after the senior class takes his final bow is junior Lily Bauer, who won 3 section titles last spring: the 100-yard dash at 12.34, 100 hurdles at 14.72, and long jump at 18 to I'm not sure how to read this one. It's 2.50. She's currently managing a strained right hamstring she suffered early in the season. She recently tweaked it again. Bauer, who is already in the early stages of the college recruitment process, speaks about multi-event competition with a calmness that explains her success in multiple events. You just have to take it one event at a time, Bauer said. If it goes bad, you got to put it behind you. If it goes good, carry that energy into the next event. Craddock knows this group is rare. What seems to matter most to him aren't the titles, it's the unnamed athlete he kicked off the team last year and pulled from the 4x100 relay at sectionals, who came back, made the state meet, and is a different person now. It's more fun to see than the times, he said. It's just how these kids grow. For the seniors and Bauer, The goal is to continue the success already established. The state qualifier, June 5th and 6th at Alden High School, follows a Section 6 Class AA meet. So we will see what happens there, but that sounds pretty positive.
Yeah. Well, that Willie Bauer long jump, 18 feet 7 inches. They had that kind of strange in the paper, didn't they?
Yeah, I couldn't quite read that right.
Indeed. Well, turning to some advice from Eric.
At 10:33.
Dear Eric, oh, good point.
Good point.
Good point. We are reminding you that you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service, and it's 34 minutes past the hour. Just clicked.
Oops.
Dear Eric, my son has a wonderful family. We have tried to be friends with him and his wife and family. He's adopted. I only tell you in case it matters for our problem. He married his wife when she had a 3-year-old daughter who is now 15. They have a 1-year-old son. We go to softball tournaments for the 15-year-old. We love them all. Here's our problem. Our daughter-in-law will not let Grandma pick up the new baby or hug him. It kills Grandma. She wants to be Grandma. Do we confront Mom and try to be grandparents? We think Mom has issues with her own mother that she projects onto our son's mom. We don't know and do not understand. Do we call out the baby's mom and do what? We walk on eggshells the way it is. Help. It is killing Grandma and me too. We want to be loving grandparents. Dear grandparents, I want to start by acknowledging that wanting to show physical care for your grandchild is not unusual, nor in the abstract unreasonable. However, it will help everyone involved if you can work on recalibrating your expectations. There are ways to show up and be grandma that don't involve hugging or picking up right now. Your relationship with this child will continue to change and grow over time, and it's possible that his mother's comfort level will change as well. A confrontation is not the way to go, but a conversation is possible and will be fruitful. First, talk to your son about the way you're feeling. He might have more information for you that will inform your thinking. Go into the conversation with curiosity rather than demands. For instance, you might say, I respect the request that I not hold the child, but it's hard for me because that's the way I show love. Can you help me understand where this is coming from? This conversation might be all you need, but it's also possible that talking to your son's wife or your son and his wife together will be helpful. This talk can focus on what they would like the grandparent relationship to be like and what you'd like it to be and how you can build it together. The most important thing is that you respect what they ask and remember that their decisions, like yours, are coming from a place of love. Well, hope that works out. Dear Eric, I am the second of 4 siblings. We're in our 60s and close in age. I generally avoid my older brother because I experience him as judgmental, self-righteous, and controlling, but sometimes I have to see him. In particular, he helps our mother a lot and seems to find a way to be present at my mother's house whenever I am there, which is not often as she lives in a rural area in Pennsylvania and I'm in California. One specific issue is I have struggled with weight issues all my life and am sensitive about it. My brother brings my weight up every time I see him, regardless of whether the setting is public. I'm currently pretty fit, but my partner, a wonderful person, is overweight. I want to bring my partner to meet my mother. Unfortunately, I have told him about my relationship with my brother, and he doesn't want to go if my brother will be there. I'm thinking of telling all my siblings that we want time alone with Mom, but I don't know if this would keep him away. Do you have recommendations, other recommendations? Too old for this. Dear, too old for this. Enlisting the help of your siblings is a good place to start. Talking to your brother directly about it is also an option, but I understand why you might be hesitant considering his lack of respect in the past. It is important to speak your truth, but in this instance, it may detract from your primary objective, which is seeing your mother. Taking a broader view, this may not be something you need to fix. I understand your partner's reticence. Meeting a partner's family can be challenging in any circumstances. Anxieties about a family member saying something rude or belittling can only compound that. However, if it's important to you that your partner meet your mother, that's the priority here. Your partner should do what he needs to do to show up for you while also protecting himself. It's not unfair to ask this. Your brother is a stranger to your partner. Strangers' comments can be hurtful, of course, and your partner need not submit himself to unwelcome opinions, but it may be possible for him to prepare himself emotionally to keep this stranger at bay while supporting you, his loved one. That sounds very difficult.
Yeah, family revelry. sibling revelry. Well, back to the front page from Mike Petro, we have a story about the watch parties for the Sabres. A critical Game 6 of the Stanley Cup playoffs on a Friday night between the Buffalo Sabres and the Boston Bruins would seem like a perfect opportunity for a big watch party downtown, as the team has done for home games. But that's not happening. The Sabres aren't planning anything, and there are no other watch parties scheduled for downtown or anywhere else around western New York. Some see it as a lost opportunity for downtown. But these gatherings also take plenty of planning, and that's not always easy to do later in a playoff series when it's uncertain until a few days prior whether a game is going to be played or not. The Sabres also have a deal with Seneca Niagara Resort and Casino, a neighbor of KeyBank Center, as their sponsor for away games, potentially limiting what the team can do on its own. The casino hosted an official Sabres watch party for Game 3 inside Stir, a bar located adjacent to the gaming floor. That's the Sabres' choice. They obviously have their marketing and ideas of how to do things, said Stephen Carmina, president and CEO of Carmina Wood Design and the chairman of Buffalo Place. Should we be doing something down here? Yeah, and we're looking at ways we can possibly do it, he added. The Sabres say they're keeping all options on the table for future rounds should the team advance. For now, they're passing it off for local businesses to instead reap the benefits from road games during the team's playoff run. The Sabres, who lead the Bruins 3-2 in the best of 7 series, have been hosting thousands of fans for each watch party at Canalside during the home playoff games, selling food, drinks, and team merchandise and bringing together its rabid fans. But they aren't doing it for the road games. And many bars and restaurants in Western New York are taking advantage of it. In the village of Lancaster, the Merchant Association hosted a hockey night in the villages with an outdoor viewing party on Main Street for Game 3 of the playoffs, and fans packed the streets to watch. However, there's not a Game 6 watch party planned. Nick Fatty, owner of Fatty Beer Company, which has a Lancaster location right outside where the watch party took place on West Main, said it was the busiest Thursday his shops had ever seen, as fans flocked to see the Sabres in the playoffs for the first time in 14 seasons. Watch parties are cool, but there's a lot that goes into it, Fatty said. You don't want to overdo it, but at the same time, people have waited for so long for this. I think they are in fashion right now and will continue to be. I can definitely see some copycats and some other things coming together because it was such a hit. Without a watch party, it's on individual businesses to try to turn the Buffalo Sabres playoff games into a draw for their customers. Some have been offering Sabres game specials, giveaways, and providing TVs throughout their establishment. Every tavern around the city's been full, and Canalside's been doing their thing, said Mayor Sean Reinen. There's some great excitement and energy. Sabres officials say they are deferring to local businesses for now during road games. They say it's not lost on them just how great away games have been for local businesses and how these establishments are benefiting. They say there's been one factor in the team's decision not to host a watch party. Fatty Beer, which has 7 locations, has been busy at its suburban bars for road games and jamming before and after home games at its downtown location on Genesee Street, which is located behind the Metro rail line. Carmina said he noticed that Fatty's Bar downtown has set up its own version of a block party for Sunday's Game 4 road game with TVs and many patrons set up outdoors. That's the kind of beauty of it. It's been close to 2 weeks of good times, and they keep winning, and it's just great for everybody, Fatty said. Additionally, fan group the Saberhood has been in full force for away games, gathering fans at various bars around downtown and the Buffalo suburbs. The Saberhood plans, I like that, Saberhood. The Saberhood has been in full force for away games, gathering fans at various bars around downtown and the Buffalo suburbs. The Saberhood plans to be at 33 Speakeasy in Cheektowaga after going to Doc Sullivan's in South Buffalo for Game 4 and Mister's in East Aurora for Game 3. There's also a network of bars and restaurants that the team supports and local hosting parties for road games, including Johnson's Landing in Hamburg. The Sabres being in the playoffs brings an energy and excitement to fans. That's awesome, said Bob Johnson, owner of Johnson's Landing. It's been a party atmosphere here 3 to 4 times a week. Carmina is studying what the Sabres have done for watch parties at Canal Side in preparation for downtown, potentially hosting similar but smaller events for fans if the Sabres make it into the next round of playoffs. He was planning to speak with the Chippewa Lions to find out more about the potential of a watch party there, like it has been done for the Buffalo Bills games. Bringing people to Central Point is great, and they're going to do better than the businesses on their street by surrounding themselves with lots of fans, Carmina said. They've already done it on Chippewa with the Bills and done it successfully. Ryan said this season is essentially a learning experience after the team broke an NHL record 14-season playoff drought. He can see outdoor watch parties ramping up if the Sabres advance in the playoffs and for future seasons. We'll probably have even more of that, and then next year when we make it to the playoffs. When? I like that too. The hockey gods willing will be ready, Ryan said. I grew up watching the Sabres in the playoffs, so it's great to have it back when we make it. The Sabres say they are still planning for what's ahead and keeping their options open for the rest of the postseason. I think the Sabres are doing what they think is right for their fans, and if we get to the second round, maybe some of those things will happen as the vibe increases even more, Carmina said. It's great to see it on TV nationwide and see all the fans out in front of the arena and at Canal Side. Oh, good luck to the Sabres, and we're all hoping and praying and crossing our fingers and everything else.
Copy that. Well, the global oil market is driving U.S. gas price spike. America is the world's leading oil producer. The United States is less reliant on foreign oil than at times in the past, and of the imported oil, only 8% comes from the Middle East. Why, then, have gasoline prices gone through the roof at America's pumps? U.S. gas prices spiked to an average of $4.18 a gallon on Tuesday, the highest level not just since the start of the Iran war, but since the early days of the Russia-Ukraine war in 2022. Gas prices are rising at a moment when there are peace talks between Iran and the United States seem to have failed or stalled. In a speech to the nation on April 1st, President Donald Trump spoke of the Iran war and the contest for the control of the Strait of Hormuz as if their outcome had little bearing on the market for oil and gasoline in the United States. The United States imports almost no oil through the Hormuz Strait. It won't be taking any in the future, Trump said. We don't need it. We haven't needed it, and we don't need it. America produces more than 13 million barrels of crude oil a day as of January. More oil is exported than imported. But Americans also consume a lot of oil and import about 6 million barrels a day. Only a small fraction comes from the Persian Gulf. Based on those facts, it may seem as if a war in the Middle East would have no bearing on gas prices in the United States. It's a global market, said Mark Zandi, chief economist of Moody's Analytics. So oil literally flows to the highest price. If a tanker can get a higher price in Malaysia than it can in Rotterdam and it can in Rio de Janeiro, it's going to go to Malaysia. When the United States began airstrikes against Iran, oil prices spiked around the globe. By one benchmark, the West Texas Intermediate Index, crude oil prices rose by about $67, from about $67 on February 27th to about $105 on March 30th. Oil prices rose because the Iran war crippled supply in the region between the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, the sudden danger in shipping oil, and collateral damage to oil industry infrastructure, among other factors. War threatened the oil supply to regions that rely heavily on oil from the Middle East, including parts of Asia and Europe. Prices spiraled across the globe, including in the U.S. Everybody's competing for the same barrel of oil, said James Cox, managing partner at Harris Financial Group. Doesn't matter whether it's produced in Texas or Iran or Saudi Arabia. The United States is the top oil-producing nation on earth, but it is also the top oil consumer, and America's oil producers are part of the global market. We produce as much as we consume, as Andy said, but at the end of the day, the producers here are going to sell to whoever can give them the highest prices as well. They're business people. The West Coast is particularly vulnerable to oil shocks in the Middle East because more of its oil comes from that region. That's one reason gas prices have soared to $5.93 a gallon in California, said Kate Gordon, CEO of California Forward, a nonprofit that advocates for sustainability. We get nothing from east of the Rockies, she said. California and the rest of the nation can take heart that the Iran war didn't seed a gasoline shortage in the United States. There were long lines for gas, but they were populated mostly by people who wanted to save a few bucks at Costco. That's a far cry from the oil crisis of the 1970s, which triggered rationing, price controls, shortages, a national 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, and long lines at gas stations across the nation. For American consumers, economists say, the Iran war delivered more hardship than crisis. Motorists paid more for the gas they purchased. Petroleum companies earned more for the oil they sold. Some other countries, more reliant on oil from the Middle East, introduced rationing, 4-day work weeks, and remote work, and urged citizens to use less air conditioning and more public transportation. You could say the U.S. economy, on net, is somewhat insulated from the shock because we are such a large supplier, said Nikolai Rusanov, professor of finance at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School, but that doesn't help the consumer at the pump. Gas prices have fluctuated in recent days following news of a fragile ceasefire on April 8th. Even with a ceasefire, oil and gasoline prices will remain elevated for several months, Cox said, unless some new source comes online. Insurance will rise on ships going through the strait, Zandi said. There's always a chance the ceasefire breaks, he said, and traders will want some premium to compensate for that. That premium is probably going to persist for some time, Cox said. He notes that oil futures, which speculate on prices at a future date, remain elevated through the end of 2026. Oil infrastructure in the Middle East has been damaged or disrupted in the Iran war. Some of it will take years and years to rebuild, Gordon said. During that time, the world's oil supply will remain pinched. There's no going back to what we had, Sandy said. At least not this year. Yeah, I got my last sub $4 gasoline purchase the other day.
Jeez.
For the near future.
Rather interesting. Well, despite the shutdown, the Secret Service personnel are being paid. This is from Louis Jacobson from the PolitiFact. After a gunman sought to breach the White House Correspondents Association dinner, some lawmakers said Secret Service agents foiled this plot even though their agency is currently unfunded during a partial government shutdown. The day after April 25th dinner, Senator Tim Scott, Republican from South Carolina, posted on X, Secret Service remains unpaid. Left-wing leaders call for violence against conservatives in the media, acts like this is all normal. Senator Rick Scott, a Republican from Florida, echoed the point about Secret Service pay, posting on X, Democrats have refused to pay Secret Service agents for over 70 days, the very agents that put their lives on the line to protect others and keep our nation safe. The Democrats need to give up this ridiculous political stunt and fully fund DHS. These statements mislead about Secret Service agents' pay. Although agents might not get paid typically under a government shutdown, the Trump administration reallocated money and authorized under President Trump's 2025 signature tax and spending law, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Under normal circumstances, a shutdown would result in some employees not receiving their normal appropriated salaries, but the administration has other resources at their disposal, said Dominic Leck, a budget policy analyst at the Libertarian Cato Institute. Tim Scott's office did not respond to inquiries for this article, nor did Rick Scott's. The White House referred us to the Office of Management and Budget, which did not respond to inquiries. Neither the Secret Service nor the Department of Homeland Security responded either. A funding lapse, often called a government shutdown, happens when the money Congress has appropriated for federal agency runs out without lawmakers passing a new funding bill. In 2025, the government experienced a record 43-day shutdown. During his earlier shutdown, federal workers generally were not paid. Once that shutdown ended, most of the federal government returned to fully funded status with one exception, the Department of Homeland Security. Democrats have been unwilling to vote to refund the department without changes to immigration enforcement policy. Republicans have been unwilling to support some of the changes Democrats are seeking, so the two parties remain in a standoff. This has meant that the department and all its subsidiary agencies, including the Secret Service, are currently unfunded. In traditional government funding standoffs, employees working for unfunded department might be asked to work, but they cannot be paid until funding is restored. By law, workers in this situation are eventually given their full back pay. The current Homeland Security funding lapse has proceeded differently. On April 3rd, after widespread news coverage of long airport security lines because of a lack of pay for federal security screeners, Trump signed an executive order that reallocated federal money so Homeland Security employees, including the Secret Service, could be paid. The money came from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which provided about $140 billion for Department of Homeland Security agencies, immigration and custom enforcement, and customs and border protection outside the normal congressional appropriations process. In effect, the administration shifted money from border security to other areas, including the Secret Service. Those funds are currently being used to pay all DHS salaries, including non-law enforcement, such as Secret Service personnel, until the funds are exhausted or fiscal year 2026. DHS appropriations are enacted. The Congressional Research Service, a nonpartisan arm of Congress, wrote on April 28th. While Secret Service employees are receiving their standard pay, they have felt a monetary pinch in other ways from the shutdown, according to Susan Crabtree, a national correspondent for Real Clear Politics who has written extensively about the Secret Service. Crabtree posted on April 25th on X that based on conversations with Secret Service employees, many have been under financial stress because they've used their government credit cards to cover job-related costs that may not be immediately reimbursed. Government credit cards are tied to personal credit scores, so unpaid balances can affect personal ratings. Tim Scott said the Secret Service remains unpaid during the current partial government shutdown. The Trump administration shifted money from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act to the Department of Homeland Security, including to pay Secret Service employee salaries. We rate that statement false. They are getting paid.
False, just short of pants on fire.
Well, I suppose you could say it that way.
Well, time to call it a day here.
Yeah, I guess it is. Oh, you've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Friday, May 1st, May Day, 2026. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. We're going to read a quick comic here, Family Circus. And I think that's Billy, isn't it?
That's
He's
Billy.
Sitting at the table. And he said, and he's got a bowl of soup and it's steaming. And he says, "Grandma, you made my soup too deep."
Big bowl of soup.
So we read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, please call us at 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Don Williams.
and JJ Patek. Thank you for listening.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. Coming up next on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have Adirondack Life. Following that at noon is the USA Today. Stay with us. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which makes